Hey guys, welcome to a new Nashville Masterclass. I am your host, James Nesferatu May. Please press that like and subscribe button, or I'll just fade away. Today, we're going to get into a subject that I think most addicts have had some experience with, and that is what it's like to die. It's a question that every human being has asked themselves, not just once or twice, but over and over as our lives, progress. When we're younger, we all think we're the ones that want to live forever. And as we get older, we realize who really wants that. But I've seen hundreds of TV shows about someone who's had a near-death experience, and they tell their story, and they think they know what it's going to be like to die. Well, take it from someone who has been clinically dead and close to death many times, from ODs, from physical injuries, and near death, having guns pointed at my face, guns shot at me, a whole array of terrible things. And I survived them all. And that always, kind of begged the question, why? But we're not going to get into that right this minute. First, I want to get into the specifics. Of all the times I was clinically dead, I never once ever saw some bright light. As a matter of fact, most of the time it was nothing. It was as if, say, you fell asleep in an instant right here, and then you woke up at the hospital and you had no idea why. That's usually what it's like. And, there's also probably a lot that you forget. Traumatic experiences, your brain automatically just kind of tries to shut those off. In my arm, let's see if you can see the scar. There you can, right? In the Army, for the first 2 years, I didn't even remember what had happened leading up to it. I finally did. Now, one thing I do remember seeing was one time I had overdosed on methadone, and my mom took me to the hospital, and I assume they gave me Narcan. I never knew. But I saw this, and I'm putting this definitely in quotations, demon, because I'm not a person who believes in demons. If you do, that's fine. We'll get on to things like that. That doesn't mean you're wrong. But whatever this thing was, it was extremely scary looking. I remember it was purple. It definitely had a face, and it kept shoving me down. And in my mind, I'm thinking every time he's shoving me down, it's into another level of hell. And every time he would shove me down one time, his arms would just form a number. And the thing about it it was laughing. It was definitely enjoying what it was doing to me. And it kept on, and finally I came to, and what it was a nurse trying to push me down as I'm, being combative. But still, the way it happened, like, if you were on LSD or something, you might see a distortion of the nurse. You might see the nurse and think it's a demon. This looked nothing like anything. This was totally out of this world. And behind it was nothing but white. And that has scared me for the rest of my life. And not just that. There were times I was clinically dead and my heart stopped beating and they had to restart it. And when I came to, it was not, oh, I'm back, like in the movies. I was scared to death. Because what if it happened again? What if I, fell back into it? Feeling that close to death, I felt no comfort. And that also goes with the near-death experiences, the times that... you'll hear so many addicts talk about how many times they were clinically dead. You're not clinically dead because you OD. Your heart is still beating. You're barely breathing, or you might stop. But as long as your heart is beating, you're not clinically dead. And addicts throw that around all the time. I think I've only been clinically dead once or twice. I've OD'd near death. I can't count how many times, and I'm not saying that as an exaggeration. Again, addicts will brag about anything, and they will brag about how many times they've OD'd. I cannot count. I have woken up in hospitals in the back of ambulances and with people on top of me with Narcan more times than I can remember. And that's not showing how cool I am. I don't know what it means. But whenever I'm hit with Narcan, a lot of people, they wake just up, and they're fine, and then they go into withdrawal, which is bad enough. But I remember so many times coming to and feeling near death. One time I was on my way to Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles, and they woke me back up, and once they woke me up, they took me to Cedars-Sinai. Instead of putting me in a room or any country, they just left me out in the hall. And I remember it was a battle to stay alive for me, because it kept feeling like I was going back out. And as I felt so near death, it even affected the way I saw. It was kind of psychedelic. I can't explain what the feeling of being... I feel like any minute. It really... At one point, when I was in the back of the ambulance, I could swear I heard other beings discuss whether or not I was going to live. And it was very, very frightening. And I think why that is, or why that was because I was not a very good person. After that experience at Cedars-Sinai, I got out, and then the very next day I OD'd again, and ended up but this time I was out and woke up with hoses. I was intubated. The whole nine. It was awful. And physically, when I've physically almost died, let's say when this happened, well, I don't think that would have killed me. Maybe 100 years ago, it might have blood infections. I don't remember anything from the moment it hit me. The last I remember was click, and that took me years to remember. They said I got up and tried to fight this truck, the tire of this truck, and I know when I finally really came to, was one of the scariest moments of my life, because I'm looking up and I'm thinking, I haven't taken any drugs. This is not because I experienced things similar on drugs, psychedelics years before, but I'm all of a sudden coming to on the ground, and I felt very close to death, and it wasn't pretty. It's subjective, right? And it's subjective to who we are. And one thing I can people will tell you that they had this near death, so now they know where they're going, this and that. You don't, just because it was like this one time doesn't mean it's gonna be like that the next time. It really is subjective to who you are and what you're doing. If you're a terrible person, then don't expect an easy, calm death, because that's not what's waiting for you. It has nothing to do with religion. This is not Christian, Buddhist, Muslim based. It's not. The energy you put out is what is going to come back to you. And you don't have to believe that. You can be like Seth MacFarlane, who thinks it's just lights out because they're so scientific. But the laws of physics would even tell you that there's no lights out. It doesn't work like that. If you're doing wrong in your life, you can expect that your death is not going to be fun. If you've ever had a bad trip, you can expect something close to that. And that's another thing that scared me, was these bad trips I had. Like, oh my gosh, is that what it's going to be like when I die? Not necessarily quite like that, because you're talking about your brain has stopped functioning. But I want you guys to think of the brain like this. So you have the main server of an app, all right? And you've got millions of phones, computers, or whatever. And each phone, each computer has its own memory with that app. People you've talked to, the things you said, all that, blah, blah, blah. When that phone dies, when that computer dies, the server still has that information, and where it goes is back into the server. the only way to destroy everything is to destroy the server, which we don't know where or what the server is, or I don't think it's even able to be, completely destroyed or destroyed at all. But what I do know is that hell is not a place with demons and a lake of fire. Hell is a place that's devoid of human emotion. Shamans have gone there for thousands of years. I've been there, not in a near-death experience, or maybe it was, but it's just a place where there's no human emotion. It's like you can view atoms, electrons, protons swirling, doing this meaningless dance of the universe. All right, meaningless. Everything there is meaningless, and you have no control. I hear people's, I'd rather go to hell, party with my friends, all my friends will be there. I hate to tell you this, but if you go to hell, AC/DC is not going to be down there playing. Your buddies aren't going to be there cracking a beer. It's a land where you're completely alone. You might see, I didn't, but I've heard people who've been here who have seen others, which you don't talk to, which you wouldn't want to anyway, because there is no such thing as speech. You can't get to them. You are not in control of anything. And I think it's like you are being sent to the most basic of physics, right? The most basic we know, say the God particle. I know the name, but you know how my mind works. But the most, we'll say electrons, protons, it's like that's where you go. There's no human emotion there. There's no control. There is no rhyme or reason. Could you imagine if a nucleus was aware at some level? And it's like you've been sent all the way back down there. And what if that's life? You start from the very basic, and you have to work your way up all the way to human. To die, and it also is subjective to the pain. Overdosing is a lot different than getting smashed by a huge piece of metal. It also makes a difference how aware you are as you're dying. The fear you would fear if you were shot or squished by a car. But this I do know is at a certain point, especially if you're a good person, there will come a time where you accept it. And not hardly, it just, as your body stops feeling, the pain goes away because the brain and the nerves have stopped talking. And instead of feeling fear, you definitely feel a warmth and caring. And that I do know. Where it goes from there, I don't. And there are a lot of people I've seen, like this Swami guru something on here on YouTube, who has many wise things to say, and somebody asked him if he knew it was like when you died, and he was like, yeah, but even if I told you, you wouldn't understand. Well, I doubt very seriously he knows exactly what's going to happen when you die. because he's still alive. It doesn't matter how far you go on DMT, on LSD, on meditation. You don't know. You really don't know for sure, but I don't think they could tell you anyway. But what these facts are is what happens to you is directly related on how you treat others, how you treat yourself, how you view the world, and how much love is in your heart. Because every time I went down doing the wrong thing, I was scared to death. I have had guns pulled on me when just someone trying to rob me when I was doing nothing. I was doing right in my life, and I felt a still calmness. And it's subjective. There is no tell-all, hey, when you die, this is what's going to happen. That's like telling somebody when they're born, okay, I'm going to tell you what your life is going to be like. It's ridiculous to think that there's a one-fits-all explanation to death, because there's not. It's subjective to each and every one of us. And even though it's subjective, it definitely is nasty for those who do the wrong thing. And you don't have to believe me. In fact, I don't care if you believe me. It doesn't matter. Because one thing I said is the truth is the truth is the truth. It can be daytime and someone can scream it's nighttime up and down. He can make a bunch of people believe it, start a podcast. Still doesn't matter, because it's still daytime. And it's still subjective, and it's still bad. I am very thankful I didn't go. And every time I tell my story, like my interview, or when I tell my story at a meeting, people say God must have a plan for you. And I would love to scoff at that. Right? Because aren't we so cool, those of us that scoff at God because we're way too intellectual? Well, I'm gonna make a little segue here, but doesn't have to have, religion and science really don't have to be something separate. The weird tales that men have told about it can be, but God and science are the same thing when you really think about it. And death is surely coming for each and every one of us. If you think you can do things on earth and get away with it, you're very wrong. If you think you can murder a bunch of people and get some prayer tattoos, prayer hand tattoos, and you're going to heaven, you're wrong. If you think you can do anything you want and then just say a prayer and go to heaven, you're wrong. None of that is going to save your soul, or whatever you want to think about it. Only you can. And I should have said this towards the beginning. I think I'll even type it up maybe. But that's the most important thing you can remember, is that death is coming for you. And from somebody that's been there a lot of times, I still can't tell you what goes beyond that, because I'm not a liar. And I'm not here for the fame of it or to sound cool. I'm telling you what I saw, what I felt, and what I know to be true. And as long as you try. You don't have to save the world, right? But as long as you have that want in yourself, as long as you want to do good, as long as you want to care and you try to care and you do your best, you don't need to fear death. But those of us who don't, who continue to do the wrong thing, the struggle is just beginning, because death is not going to be easy. These are the things I know. These are the things I've seen. These are the things I felt. And I hope you take what I say to heart, because I'm not making money saying this. I'm not going to become famous saying this. This video probably won't be seen a bunch of times. I may be dead myself before anybody even cares about the message that I push on all these videos. But I hope you really think about it. And for those of you that have had near-death experiences, please share them in the comments. Just because I didn't see a white light doesn't mean you didn't, and doesn't mean they're wrong. Like I said, it's subjective for all of us. I don't know how I've been talking for 26 minutes. It doesn't feel that long, but I'm going to go ahead and end this video. And if you have more questions, just let me know, guys. And again, you should press like and subscribe, because you may not be here tomorrow to do it. Alright, guys. Really. Later.